Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV, TGIF. It is Friday, December 12th, 2025. I am so glad to be back with you here on the channel on You Are Free TV. I jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. Okay, so glad to be back with you. We have tons of news we're going to jump into here, and I will always start by saying thank you. Thank you so much to everybody supporting the channel, especially monthly. You make it happen. You make me know how many videos I can do, what kind of time I can put into this, and so I'm so thankful. And happy Merry Christmas season to everyone out there. We're going to jump in here with the news. Oh, and of course, my fantastic sponsor, C60evo.com, giving the incredible holiday sales right now that I believe this is the first time they've done it. And it's just amazing because it's, great prices for the best quality ESS 60. That is the carbon 60 uber purified and the best lab in the world in Houston, Texas. The olive oil, these are the capsules I love because you can carry them in your pocket for instant energy and focus and mood and everything, plus anti-inflammation, inflammaging, all of it. But anyway, check out the sales below. You can go to c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. You won't be able to use it on all of the sales because they are so great already. And yet you must go to that link below to get those holiday sales. 15% off, of course, to anybody who's ever donated to the channel. And I give away 2 bottles every month to 2 different people randomly selected who support the channel. So, it's a great time because it's not a giant pool out there if you want to be a winner of one of these free bottles. So fantastic. Anyway. And if you haven't watched my last 2 videos with Chris Burrs, they're so fantastic about the incredible results that they're getting. And the last one about talking about the incredible single source super pure olive oil that are used in these what is the highest potency in the olive oil of the carbon 60. It's just fantastic to learn everything about it. Okay. So let's go into the news. I'm so glad to be back with you here on a Friday night, TGIF. Thank God I'm free, and thank God it's Friday. We made it through another week here, heading into this fantastic Christmas season. And so there's so much going on. Yesterday, I loved all the comments from yesterday as we're looking at this AI onslaught and these bills that can spread 6G everywhere. Very threatening. And so I'm going to touch in with some new things that came into the news just today about that. But I wanted to touch on something first, and I wanted to talk about, Stephen Miller has been coming out talking about how he is, of course, head of domestic policy as assistant White House chief of staff and also head of domestic policy. And he is basically saying they're going hard after the NGO refugee industrial complex set up by Mayorkas et al. You can just name them, Jake Sullivan, et cetera, Anthony Blinken, and the globalists. And basically he's saying, their plan successfully executed was to install massive thousands and thousands of refugees, especially in small towns and cities across rural America, to basically destroy them and take them over and destroy the lives of the Americans living there. And that they're going hard after the NGOs because, of course, part of all of this was the massive fraud industry of stealing. It's in the hundreds of billions, and it's probably in the trillions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer dollars stolen under this situation. And we're just seeing it exploding. But I wanted to mention a video I watched a couple days ago because I've been meaning to, of this woman. I don't know if it was Walmart, but she works in Walmart, by the way. Did just say they're going to, by 2027, get rid of their synthetic dyes in their generic Walmart food. So that's the win from the pressure of of course, RFK Jr. and everything amazing he's doing. And so basically what I want to describe here is this incredible video of this woman who was working the graveyard shift, okay, at this 24-hour supermarket, and it was 2 a.m. and she had come through she's a cashier, and she has come through her register. A bunch of, she said they were speaking Spanish, so we'll just say a bunch of Latino people. I believe she said they were women, and they had numerous carts, and they were making fun of her. And she's a white woman in maybe her 50s, and she's working this graveyard shift, okay, obviously to survive. And they go through, they're making fun of her for having to work this graveyard shift. They're then speaking in Spanish and laughing at her and doing all this stuff. And they rack up this bill of something, I believe she said $3,200. $3,200 with tons and tons of carts. And she said it was all junk food, all junk food. $3,200. Okay. I can't imagine that. And basically, the scam there is they buy all of this with their EBT cards, with their SNAP benefits, and they then supply whoever is running them or whatever. They supply a store with all this junk food that they get for free on the taxpayer dime, and then they bring it to, they get it to the store, and the store sells it for full price. It's kind of what I've been describing, and a lot of people already know this. And so we're going to get into some more of this and just touch in here. I think I'll do that next. But sticking with this woman in her 50s, she said, I'm having to endure this abuse by these people in the middle of the night. And she said, then I get off at 6 a.m. and I go to my next job, okay, where I work until late afternoon and then have to sleep to come back in here for the graveyard shift, right? And this is the situation of America that we're fighting so hard to end and combat. And so I think with that, there's so much I'm going to get into here. Ukraine, what's going on there with the EU now, going to seize the Russian funds anyway, everything going on there. There's so much, and I'm going to jump into it. But I did want to also talk about this woman who is a whistleblower from the TSA, who no longer works there, but has come forward since the Somali trafficking of money stolen through the COVID, through all the fraud. Okay, all the fraud that they're doing. Medicare is huge. Obamacare is huge. Obamacare is huge. That's why they're pushing so hard to extend it for 3 years. But basically, what she had to say working at the TSA, which is just incredible, let me get to her, was that she worked in Minnesota at, I think, at St. Paul. Let me see. Where is she? Sorry. A little mix up in my notes, but I'm getting there. Pause for a moment. Let's see. Where is she? Yeah. Okay. So basically, she is, putting forth what is a Somalian refugee crime scene here, out of, I think, St. Petersburg. It's Minneapolis. Oh, excuse me, St. Paul, not St. Petersburg. That's Tampa. That's Florida, where there's massive Muslim invasion there. That we have interesting things going on there. Well, as well with DeSantis, of course, now declaring CARE a a terrorist organization, and we're having DeSantis getting basically saying, he's already being sued for this, and he's really welcoming the lawsuit because of the discovery that can then happen to get into all the financial dealings of CARE. So very, very good there. And a new governor running to replace DeSantis, James Fishback, going against Byron Donalds. I'm going to get into him later. We've got a few, Mike Lindell yesterday, Fishback, and then we get another Texas candidate that's going to be fantastic as well, all fighting the same things: AI data centers, election steal fraud, H-1B visas, the invasion, all of it. So one moment. So with this woman, what she had to say is she's working at the St. Paul airport for TSA, and and what happened here is, and her name is I'm not sure if I should say her name, but she is a TSA worker, and she said regularly every week there were suitcases filled with millions of dollars in cash going through St. Paul airport. And it was Somalis. There, sometimes it was one, usually it was two people who would come together with, they'd come through the TSA line with suitcases filled with cash. They'd be brought into a room with supposedly a law enforcement agent that would accompany them there, and that then they would be free to go and fly to Somalia. Okay, fly to Mogadishu or whatever. And this happened weekly, she said. They went through security, through law enforcement, never denied passage, and she said it was happening every single week, that this was millions of dollars in cash in suitcases, while we have to now pay $45, right? Starting, if we don't do the real ID. Um, you have the Somalis going through St. Paul Airport, and I can't stand the TSA. I can't stand the international people that are working there, and how it is absolutely against our rights as American citizens to have non-nationals um, uh, surveying us as we go through the airport. It drives me just nuts. I can't stand it. So anyway, basically, she says that their IDs and itineraries were recorded. She says there is a paper trail here of this millions and millions of dollars. She says in the 5 years she was there in St. Paul Airport, that she says she can absolutely say there was at least $1 billion that went through in cash of Somalis flying out of St. Paul. And so she said one time that in the suitcase, what she saw, what there was a suitcase full of brand new passports, okay, and allowed to go, allowed to fly out to Somalia. So basically, as we know that 89% of the Somalis are on welfare, the multiple wives, the same thing I just described with that woman in that video, where they just fill up their shops with all of their wives' EBT card bought, which are much much higher than what Americans get, on their EBTs, maybe $200 a month or something. They're getting thousands, and filling up their shops that are always located right next to a restaurant. That they then put the food into the restaurant, and then in the little mini mall there's always some kind of healthcare, home health system. It's all just three different frauds in one little mini mall. So anyway, I wanted to stress that is incredible whistleblower story. And yeah, it's beyond amazing. So if I can link that below, I will. I might be able to do that. Okay, so moving on from there, we have the newest weather weapons assault happening in Washington. I don't know if there's any any deaths yet. I'm sure there's casualties as far as injuries, etc. 100,000 people being evacuated or ordered to evacuated by corrupt Governor Bob Ferguson out of Washington. And basically, this is the Mount Vernon area. Of course, this is a river area. And I think we immediately need to know if there's, who's trying to get bids for AI data centers or whatever, trying to access that river, because we now have another weather warfare. Again, one of these high river systems that was diverted, atmospheric rivers that then get controlled by the large array systems and dumped. And they're doing it right now in Washington. And you're seeing the same thing as all the other places with the rivers, where houses just going right off their foundations, floating down river. You're having people rescued from their roofs. So we pray for the people of Mount Vernon area, Mount Airy, Mount Vernon, and Sumas is some of the footage I've seen. So very disturbing, and of course Trump has declared a national emergency, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to keep continuing to fight this, or to cover it and do what we can as these weather wars continue on American citizens. and our land, our property, our treasure, the things that we hold dear. And so moving on from there, following on from yesterday, we have to do with the AI data centers. We have the land confiscation, eminent domain going on, this fight in what I was just said, Mount Airy, Maryland. And of course, this is very close to the Virginia border. And basically, there's one property that's a Christmas tree farm where they're basically being told we're going to eminent domain you to put massive high transmission electrical lines across their property, as well as multiple cell towers that have to accompany this. Just, the combo, as I said yesterday, of the towers with the AI, they need both. And they go together. And basically, this is to serve a AI data center being built in Virginia across the border. And so they are, and I don't know if it's one, it's probably multiple, but definitely one. And this is about what they're calling or it's part of the $424 million Maryland energy reliability project, okay, which has nothing to do with energy reliability for the citizens of Maryland. It has, of course, to do with a 67-mile transmission line across 3 counties that they're trying to basically steal land to enact. So exactly what we were talking about yesterday. And basically they're saying we won't be an extension cord for the Virginia data centers, and we'll see what plays out there. But very disturbing and important to mention here to continue on to give that information about what's going on. And so I wanted to also just mention, of course, we have the second, we had the investigation to the first founder of BLM, and now the co-founder, the second co-founder, Tashella Dickerson, has been charged with money laundering and wire fraud, something like $5.6 million. Okay, this is out of Oklahoma and having to do with, especially connected with national bail fundraisers, okay, to do with the BLM fundraisers to provide bail for BLM protesters. Something like Kamala Harris knows a lot about, as she was calling for people to donate to this bail fraud scheme. And so basically, as if they needed it, because they were never, there was never bail. Okay, they never needed bail to get out of prison. They keep winning these settlements everywhere where these BLM protesters are getting millions and millions of dollars for burning down cities, and it's just sick and disgusting in these blue cities. But basically, this woman Tashella Dickerson, um, all kinds of stuff here with 6 properties that she owns in Oklahoma City, in an LLC called Equity International, all kinds of trips to Jamaica and all kinds of massive money being spent. Something up to about $5.6 million is at least what they're talking about. So good to see justice coming there. That is a great win, and we support it, of course. And so I'm going to be getting to Ukraine and everything there, but I want to mention just a couple people who are running now for governor that I think is really important. One is Lieutenant Colonel, speaking of disasters, weather warfare disasters, and somebody who's given so much to aid people who are in distress, whether it was North Carolina, all the last year's, destroy and grab weather wars. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers out of Texas is running for governor against, of course, Governor Abbott. And he is vowing basically to go against, to protect the water of Texas from the AI data centers. He brought up especially Abilene, Texas, where they're building huge AI data centers, that they get only 18 inches of rain per year. It's super dry area, and that West Texas and of course Arizona are going to be sucked dry by these AI data centers. And in West Texas, we could see the water, just all the groundwater gone by 2050 if these things go through. The just total destruction of the Texas cattle industry and etc. And his push is if there's going to be AI data centers in Texas, they need to move to the coast and desalinate. Just like I was talking about with Oblivion yesterday, the movie, right? Where they have these massive desalination towers and all of the water sucked up into these breakaway civilization craft to be transported to their breakaway new asteroid or home that they are building their new society on. But very interesting there. He wants to move them to the coast if they're going to be there. You can go to doc Pete Chambers.org and check out his campaign. And he's calling his run, he's running for the senior public servant position. Okay, going back to um, constitutional speak, for the senior public servant position in Texas, being the governor. And he also has vowed, very interestingly, to bring back to focus really centrally on recreating an established militia in Texas, as it's supposed to be constitutionally. Every state is supposed to have a standing and ready militia. Every man, I believe, from 17 to 45 to be included in this, and that he wants to focus on that getting done, and also that the National Guard, the States Guard in Texas is very resoundful and just very built up and ready to go because of the threat to the border. And we're watching the situation where the Trump administration is going to be building this DMZ kind of situation, this federalized military area that will be um, in especially San Diego County to California, and Baja California being one of the most criminal states, okay, the of Mexico. And so creating this zone is part of what's going on, and it's pretty amazing, pretty intense that they're going for it. But we're going to see what happens there. There is huge the Sinaloa cartel being hugely in charge in Baja, and just and the trafficking is still happening there, even though they're trying so hard with drone activity, et cetera, to stop it. And so that is happening. And very interestingly, as we're seeing everything heating up here with Venezuela, was it a gold? Was it, is it the gold? We're looking at um, still finding out what was going on with that one tanker. However, there's discussion that there is going to be a full-on naval embargo of Venezuela. We're seeing this as Maria Machado is popping up in Norway, coming out of hiding. So it looks like things are moving here, and it'll be very interesting to see how this goes as we're having, and on that border there, California and Mexico, which are hoping to expand, they're sending, I believe, 7,000 U.S. troops there to secure that border and protect this zone. So very interesting. And all of this, while all of this is happening, we're having the U.S. Admiral of Southern Command actually retiring. I don't have his name in front of me. Retiring like today or something. And I thought it was going to be later this month, but that is happening. So there's a new control here of Southern Command and Southcom being huge. Okay, in the what we see in the 33-page report of the change in the National Security Directive, what it means to go back to a Monroe Doctrine style of defending the Western Hemisphere, with the military being refocused. And so very interesting there as we're looking at I might save James Fishback for a little later while I jump in here with Ukraine, because as we're finding out today, and I've been talking about this, how they're Trump, it looks like Trump by Christmas, if there is not basically a surrender of Zelensky, of Ukraine and NATO EU, to let go of this war, and we're seeing Russia taking almost all of Donetsk at this point. I believe it's only about 12% now occupied by Ukraine. Huge, massive push by Russia to take that area of the traditionally Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine, the ones assaulted so hard by the Azov Battalion that kicked off the war, and going full bore. And we still don't know if that meeting is going to happen in EU this weekend. But Trump is saying basically, if you don't, if there isn't surrender, he's not calling it surrender. If the peace deal doesn't happen, then we're going to cut off the satellite and the telemetry, the missile guidance, the satellite guidance that we contribute under the quietly, NATO does it, right? But basically going to leave them kind of blind there for whatever is coming up. And this support ending will be, kind of the end. And so what we look at here is that the EU, what they've been buying this time trying to get the money, okay, what they're calling a reparations loan to Ukraine, is really just like, they need to build out the Death Star for the empire, okay? They need to build out this huge area that it was always meant to be NATO's militarized, its center of military to conduct World War III. And we're at this place where we're looking at the only option they have left really is some kind of FF. It is some kind of sum of all fears, some kind of rogue, Israeli nuke that is, perfectly planned to go off somewhere to blame Russia, of course. And it's very interesting as we're seeing what's going on with the EU as they've been trying to get this money together to steal the Russian. It's about $350 billion of assets, and it's about 245 billion euros. And so what we're looking at this is they have now indefinitely frozen those Russian assets using totally unconstitutional European Union methods, and they've gone ahead and done it. So the European Central Bank would not back this loan that they wanted to build all these weapons to start World War III. And we have Mark Rutte, of course, the head of NATO, coming and saying Europe must get ready and prepare for a World War II level war. Expect deprivations, expect all of this stuff. To the Europeans who want nothing to do with it at all whatsoever. And so their solution was to just, say F you to the Constitution of the EU and go ahead and do what they've done, which is to use Article 122 of EU treaties that allows a qualified majority, meaning the real power nations, okay, Germany, France, etc., to be in charge of this. A qualified majority can approve emergency economic measures, okay? And so, of course, this will be, this economic measure is to say that they are indefinitely seizing the Russian assets. So this can override the protest and the blocking of this by Hungary and Slovakia, which they have done, and no more money to Ukraine war, nothing, won't do it. And basically what they're saying, von der Leyen, the commissioner of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, who I've told you so much about her past and everything about her, European International, Trotskyite, spy agent. Well, basically, she invoked the emergency treaty powers to override this dissent from Hungary and Slovakia, and bypassed the usually required unanimous consent and approval of the member states. Okay, and so now they're going to say those assets are indefinitely seized, and so therefore they can back this massive mega Death Star building loan. And what it really means is just that loan is coming out of taking all that money from the people, and it's allowing them to go into debt in the EU on a fiat level of basically loaning against things that don't exist, and all that money is going to come from the already extremely dire situation of the European people. So that is now happening. and we're looking at what could be basically a very, very uh, hairy scenario of what's left. We get Sergei Lavrov coming off and saying, um, as this was going down in the last few days, but this just happened today, I believe. But basically, what Lavrov had to say was, the problem here is that the EU is lying, and they completely and 100% are insincere about ending the war. They only want a ceasefire to, of course, get this money, to get tons of weapons, to basically go to full blown world war. He said the Russia unequivocally has no aggression, no intents of aggression against Europe, against NATO countries. And however, Europe is, unlike the Trump team wanting to bring the peace and solidify the peace, that EU just keeps refusing to admit the root causes of the war with the NATO expansion, which goes against the Minsk agreement that they lied about, and immediately started expanding NATO. And of course, the Ukraine coup of 2012, okay, orchestrated by Obama, Nuland, um, Blinken at all. Okay, Victoria Nuland, the list goes on and on out the door, and of course Biden. And so uh, Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, says there's no aggression towards Europe or NATO countries. However, if Ursula von der Leyen, if the EU attack Russia and start a war with Russia, we are 100% ready for it at this time. And we are ready. We're not going to let you attack us. It's not going to happen. And so very, very interesting here. We'll see what goes on if there is a meeting this weekend, and as they're constantly buying time. And to me, thinking about this forever, the buying time seems to me that obviously they can't therefore just, produce all of what they would need weapon-wise to go against Russia. It can't happen. It's just impossible. But what they can do is buy time to have one, two, three, several, many FFs go on, okay, where if it's nuclear or it's whatever, where that's what can kick it off. And then they have the money to pretty much pay the US for the weapons, right? Because that's their only hope. They can't get them elsewhere except for possibly China, which would be very bizarre for China to go give weapons to the EU against Russia. Unlikely. And so it's all very interesting as we're kind of sitting on this precipice here as Christmas comes around. And we're also, we have the leaked document from a couple of days ago where it was said that Operation 1776 worldwide, where it was this supposedly leaked document of there being some backdoor discussions to do with several major players in the EU, being Hungary, um, Italy, and Poland, to leave the EU, okay, and to kind of sort of a mega make Europe great again possible scenario to try to break up the European Union, which I think would be fantastic. Their unelected people have no power. They destroyed everything, and it's disgusting. And of course, the people of Europe, the populace are exploding and want the end of this unelected power destroying their country. So very interesting if that comes with anything. I know that people like Jim Rickards, who is former CIA analyst, economist, major player, think tank guy of huge world economic relations, etc. Um, basically saying the EU is just a giant parasite. It's like a giant tick, just sucking all of the money and resources and dominating the US, etc., and the world, and of course the UK, the City of London, huge central in there in all of this. But he was in Slovenia, okay, a couple months ago, basically instructing the Slovenians that they should leave the EU, that's where that is where, of course, Melania Trump is from. So very interesting. We'll see what goes down and what's happening. And so going on from there, I think I will move into, and I might touch back in there, but I might move on to. I wanted to tell you about James Fishback in Florida, if you haven't heard yet. Oh, and before I get there as well, I also wanted to mention regarding Europe and some background talk of what could be coming out is something to do what's called the C5, the five countries that basically opposing the G7. A very interesting possible emergence of what would be a USA, Russia, I believe Japan, and I don't know if it's China and India. I just found out about this. I'm going to be digging into it over the weekend. I'll get into it next week. But basically, to replace BRICS, okay, this is to get what the Trump administration sees as the bad players out, but somehow to come up with a common currency trade system and platform versus what's going on with the domination of globalism and the global threat, the World Economic Forum domination of the G7. So very interesting there. We'll keep following it. We need to defeat these neo totalitarians, right? The technocratic, globalist, liberalist state that is trying to enslave all of humanity and certainly destroy the West and destroy Christianity and the USA. And so, going on from there, I want to just mention this real quick. We had, of course, what is it, Sharon Moore, the Michigan coach who was arrested for stalking and attempted home invasion of the woman who is part of his staff who he was having this affair with. And he's arrested, and immediately they have their preliminary hearing, and they had no problem whatsoever of him appearing in Michigan. He was head coach at Michigan, university, just very important football team or whatever. I don't know, making millions and millions of dollars. He gets called out for this affair and whatever, and then he's arrested, and then he's in prison, right? He's in jail. And they have the hearing, and they had no problem. He was in there with his jail garb on, shackled, okay, and having to go through this very public hearing that was all over the news, just showing the whole thing, okay. And we juxtapose that, okay, and that's awful. Home invasion, stalking, those are crimes. I believe he had a knife, and there was, it was attempted violence, and awful, of course. I guess I don't know, the details behind all of this, but it's so interesting comparatively to the massive, long drawn out hearing yesterday to do with um, Tyler Robinson, okay, and the Kirk murder, and that he gets to wear a tie and a button-down shirt, and he can't be shackled on his hands, and they can't film him directly for the public to see. It has to be all from afar, and he literally is being accused, of murdering Charlie Kirk, an all-out, planned, premeditated murder, assassination of a massive national treasure and figure, and he gets all this special treatment with this massive murder because he can't get a fair trial. This guy hauled off like in the last couple of days, bam, right there, shackled, didn't kill anybody, right? And yes, we can put this all over mainstream news, your whole hearing, and you're sitting there in your jail pajamas and shackled up. So, it's very interesting. The worse the crime, the more padded it is by mainstream media, and it's disgusting. And of course, that whole cover up, right? They said there'll be, thousands more Charlie Kirks after his murder, but no, instead we just have no Charlie Kirk, right? We just have no Charlie Kirk, and we get a book. We get a book with his hand saying "stop," and in the name of God, and his face faded out way in the back because he's faded out because he's gone, right? He's gone. And Erica Kirk on every day this week, and then tomorrow on Barry Weiss, she'll be there with the head of CBS in a supposed town hall with all completely pre-programmed, pre-selected questions in the town hall. it's already been filmed and it's loaded up with just all, you know, chosen people in the audience. So very, very interesting, all of that. So I just wanted to mention the comparison there. I think it's important. Okay, and so I'm going to be winding down soon. There's stuff I'm going to be getting into next week. I'm not going to just jump into that, but I did want to talk about the Tina Peterson um, federal pardon that Trump did yesterday at like 7 p.m., where he did present a federal pardon of Tina Peters, the Mesa County, Colorado clerk, who preserved the 2020 federal election records from the machines, as she is sworn to do by her oath, by um, her job, her duty, and legally absolutely required to do so. And so she basically got this pardon from Trump federally. And this came after her lawyer, Peter Tickton, fantastic, amazing guy, where he wrote on the 6th of December this application for a presidential pardon of Tina Peters to the president, who went ahead and followed through with that. And we had, of course, the immediate response by Colorado AG Phil Weiser, right? Refusing, of course, to release her, saying, nope, Colorado, she committed crimes, supposedly. And of course, she did not. She did the opposite. She caught them in their crimes, and that's what happens to whistleblowers. We have something I want to touch on before I go here about whistleblowers and what's going on here. But when we look at this, it brings the pressure cooker is on, and it's likely going to go to the Supreme Court. And so this is great developments. I hope it's giving Tina Peters some hope. And we all pray for her every day. Please include her in your prayers. We know that she's not faring well in prison. Who does? But she's harassed. She is being held in solitary, and her health isn't great. So please, please, please pray for Tina Peters, a national hero. And this could lead, and might possibly lead, to part of what could become a national emergency to be declared over U.S. elections system being fraudulent and broken and corrupt. And what we might see in that, and I'm getting this from Forbidden News, and she's fantastic. I linked it below, her Substack. But she's talking about the things that could possibly be included in the U.S. elections national emergency if Trump were to declare it. And this is both great and disturbing. I mean, it's great to declare it. I'm all for it. We need it. We're so screwed if we don't. Okay, just like we need to end the filibuster right now. Just like we need to get rid of the blue slips with the state senators refusing the U.S. attorneys, still trying to get Halligan in. It's just disgusting how the DOJ is so corrupt to stop these players. And so this gets down to, of course, what's called Siggy, or George H.W. Bush installing through half-dead, brain-dead Carter, the SES, Senior Executive Service, and what is the Council of Inspector Generals on Integrity and Efficiency that lords above the AGs, and shortly called the Council, okay? And they run everything to kill all the investigations. And this would help to, I think this would all be part of this, but I'm going to get more into that in a moment. What we could see if there is a U.S. elections national emergency, if Trump can declare this, it would basically throw out all current voter rolls, just throw them out completely. And the citizens would have to re-register to vote, which is great. I think that's fantastic, using their government ID. The one threat here, are they going to try to make it a real ID, which many, many people just can't get, but also we should not be forced to get anything connected to a digital ID. However, they would need government issued ID that is and also proof of residence in the state that you're in. So you have to show that you actually live in that state, and of course have your signature verified by the county clerk, which back when would have been Tina Peters, right? By your county clerk that has to notarize that voter registration form, okay, and your signature. So that's fantastic. And it would also include 1 day voting, 1 day counted where the vote is cast, right there, no traveling of ballots, no drop boxes, no mail-in ballots except for extreme exceptions and military overseas, and no late votes counted whatsoever. And I think that is fantastic. I pray that it does happen. And one of the things that is going on here, Trump did a thing today where he had the Miracle on Ice memorial dedication, where he had the surviving members or their children of the U.S. hockey team that defeated the Soviet Union in 1980 in Lake Placid come, and there's going to be a memorial. And I just wanted to mention this little part because it was so bizarre. The whole ceremony was really lovely, but strangely, Kash Patel was there. It was it's Friday night, right? It's like Friday night, Friday afternoon. Kash Patel's in the Oval Office with the U.S. hockey team survivors, just for this photo shoot for no reason. It was just so strange. He's just standing there as part of this, and you're just like, Kash Patel, could you go out and do something? It was very odd. Okay, very strange. Even Trump was like, "What are you doing here? Like, what's going on?" And it was very strange. So, any who's what's, we have over 751 whistleblowers that have been, just stripped of their service, their security clearance, and their pension stopped and frozen. And basically, what we're dealing with is just the DOJ, after Trump's executive order to end the weaponization of government. We are having a Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche problem, where they are stopping Ed Martin, as you know, um, not supporting him. He is the head of the weaponization of government task force. He has been doing these pardons. I'm sure he's the one that wrote up the one for Tina Peters. But he, in kind of conjunction with Harmeet Dillon, she's in charge of the election fraud as well as weaponization, and Joe Kent under Tulsi Gabbard, ODNI, all together to prosecute these weaponization of government, which is, as I said, this SES problem, okay, of the deep staters waiting out, but under the IGs, under the inspector generals, killing all the investigations in every department of whistleblowers coming forward against massive criminality. Okay, it's not just waste, fraud, and abuse, that's heinous, but massive criminality about sedition, treason, and conspiracy. And this is what needs to happen. We have rampant sedition, rampant conspiracy, and this is the weak point. And it was, of course, in the first Trump administration. If we can't get rid of and control, and I'm all for the complete and total control, okay, over the DOJ. I'm full on Abe Lincoln style, where he arrested all the judges and just shoved them in jail, until the war was over, the Civil War, because this is the bane of our existence in trying to move America forward to defeat globalist occupation and from within and without. And if we can't stop the DOJ corruption, if we can't extricate these SES members with their overlords of the inner courts and back to the City of London, back to the Pilgrim Society, then we will not win. And this is just vital. So anyway, I'm going to save James Fishback for next week. He's running in Florida for governor. Great stuff. But I will just say, very interesting with Oracle and Larry Ellison and the whole situation of Oracle. I remember Stargate and OpenAI. Oh, OpenAI just signed a contract with Disney, OpenAI and Disney. So here we go. Here it comes. They're starting it with supposedly only characters, Disney characters, for there to be AI, the ability to use AI to put out their persons, across whatever in any kind of new way coming up. And so I see this. It's like it's just $1 billion agreement contract, and so this is kind of a gateway I see as to what's coming with stars, etc., selling their likeness for AI contracts for their likeness to be able to be used, and just losing all plot of what's human, what's not, what's AI generated, or is there a difference? Do we even care? That's what they're pushing for, that we don't even care. We like the AI better, actually. It's better than these lowly humans with their imperfections. So we'd rather see our chosen star, in the great ways that AI can do it versus their own little human selves. So that's happening. But with this whole thing with Oracle, it's very interesting, massive stock dumping, because it's coming out of huge, 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 huge debt, okay, with Oracle. And very interesting because, we get back to FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, Ellison's daughter, being central part of that, all of that whole Ponzi scheme. And so it's kind of interesting to see that it's coming out that Oracle is a is in a dire situation, and can't say I'm not happy about that. I basically really am. Okay, so that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I hope that you found something useful. If you did find something of added value in this video, I so appreciate it if you would support the channel below. Greatly, greatly appreciated, truly. And we're sitting here, going into Christmas season, and there's so much happening every single day, so intensely. And I just want to urge everyone to, get back in your center, limit your digital time, for sure. And the Greek philosophers, or whatever would call it, the telic center. But it is, where God resides within you, to just quiet, and redirect and focus. What is your life purpose? What is your direction? Where can you be of service? And, if you ask, God will tell you. And it's usually to do with what are your special attributes that we're all born with. We all have our own special talents and skills. And a lot of times people avoid them. A lot of times people kind of, want, maybe, the sin can be sloth, right? Where you just don't do what you could do, right? And I can't remember who said it. Tolstoy, no, somebody way far back. But anyway, we're all guilty of the good we do not do. So do your good. Do it over the weekend, right? Do it with family and friends, and but also in focusing your mind towards the good and towards God, because that's what's going to win this race and save humanity from the global cartel, international banksters, and the economy of sin. We're working hard. Everybody keeps on it. Then we can win this. So you are free. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your family and friends and fellowship. And I will see you next time being Monday. See you then. You are free.